All right, welcome to the very first episode of the Two-Way podcast. My name is Andrew. I'm the world's biggest Shohei Ohtani fan. Don't let Ben Verlander tell you otherwise. I'm joined by my good friend Brandon. He's a lifelong Dodgers fan, and we're going to be breaking down what's going on with the Dodgers. I actually, to be fully transparent, I cover the Cardinals for the Deal in the Cards podcast. You might know me from there. I also write about the Cardinals for Fansided, but I do have a secret passion for enjoying two-way players, hence the name of the podcast. And I just want to talk about the Dodgers, what's going on with Shohei Ohtani. Obviously, talk of the town right now. They're in the World Series. Brandon, what have you thought of the postseason so far and how the Dodgers have played? We've watched pretty much every game together so far. So
We do. So far, definitely better than last year's. Last year's was just kind of boring. Just a very low end market between the range. I mean, I won't say that because the Rangers did spend $500 million on their roster. So, but it was just a boring matchup that no one other than those fan bases really wanted. But
yeah.
I mean, so far this year, it's been fun, at least from the Dodger side. We had a great series against the Padres, and then we put on an absolute offensive show against the Mets. And as a fan, I can't really ask for much. It went one game longer than I predicted. I predicted Dodgers in 5, and it went 6. But just to win at home against the Mets and clinch, nothing more you can ask for. So it's been really fun.
Yeah, for sure. Dodgers obviously not necessarily favorites coming into the postseason, even though they had the best record in all of baseball. They're going to have home field advantage against the Yankees throughout the series. They're going to play game 1 and 2 at home, game 6 and 7 at home as well. The pitching was really kind of called into question, but it kind of figured itself out throughout the postseason. The bullpen games have been mostly successful, except for that first one against the Mets. And it really looked like the Dodgers were about to enter another sort of early postseason collapse against the Padres after going down 2-1. It just didn't look good. And I thought that was the end of the line, really. And they've kind of proven me wrong. They took the bullpen game in game 4. They shut out the Padres in game 5, and they never looked back. Like the Mets series, there were a couple games where the Mets really looked good. But for the most part, it was all Dodgers. And I'm really excited for the World Series against a Yankees team that is really strong. So I think we're going to open up our conversation by looking at the two rosters, kind of previewing the Yankees roster and then the Dodgers roster, and kind of looking at how each of the two match up. Obviously, Dodgers podcast, we can start with them. I'm a little bit more familiar with that roster as well. I've watched them all of this season. So there you go. The starting rotation, the starting pitchers that the Dodgers will carry, there are 4 of them. One of them, Landon Knack, probably not going to be starting any games, probably going to follow an opener if he gets much playing time at all. But the 3 main starting pitchers the Dodgers are carrying, Jack Flaherty will be starting game 1, former Cardinals player who I am actually very familiar with, and makes me a little bit nervous because his Cardinals career is full of ups and downs. His postseason performances have been full of ups and downs, and I don't really know what we're going to get out of him. But then you got Yoshinobu Yamamoto, Japanese import, highest paid pitcher of all time, almost a Yankee, like Jack Flaherty, almost a Yankee. So there you go. That's an interesting storyline to follow. But Yamamoto has been great this playoffs. He had a shaky start against the Padres, but bounced back in game 5 to give them a lot of quality innings. Mets series was also pretty good for the most part. And Walker Buehler, who has had one great start against the Mets and one start against the Padres that was, if you look at his line, it was really bad. But if you, by the eye test, a lot of errors in that inning, a lot of missed plays. You give the Padres like 5-6 outs to work with, it's not going to end well for you. So honestly, not really any objections with the way Buehler's pitched this playoffs. What are your thoughts on the starting rotation going into the series?
Yeah, I mean, it's been a roller coaster for the Dodgers rotation. I mean, even just like if you look at who's on the injured list, we could probably start all, I don't know, 4 or 5 of the injured pitchers, and we'd be in a great place. But looking at the roster as it is right now, the pitchers are, I would say, okay. They've shown signs of brilliance in like the playoffs. You had Walker Buehler doing a fantastic job against the Mets, and he also blew up against the Padres, which again, like you said, it goes back to errors and giving Padres extra outs to work with. Yoshinobu Yamamoto, he had a great start against the Yankees earlier this year. I think he went 7 innings of shutout ball. Awesome. But we saw against the Padres that he could blow up. I mean, he's done it. I don't know if it's just the Padres, but the Padres have gotten to him twice. And that's just not fun to see. But I mean, we'll see. Landon Knack, I have a little bit less faith in. But again, he's going to be an opener or next to an opener for a bullpen game, essentially. Flaherty's kind of up and down as well. He's had a great start, and he's also had a poor start against the Mets. And he, in his past, has had 1 start against the Yankees, 6 innings pitched, 4 hits, no runs. So I'm hopeful, but I won't be surprised if they pull him a little bit early. It's a mixed bag, let's say.
Oh yeah, I believe that start was. I don't think that start was this year. It might have been with the Cardinals in 22 when they swept them. That was a fun series for me to watch. But yeah, the starting rotation, I think it's good, but you never want to start bullpen games in the playoffs. It's just not necessarily a good recipe for success. It's worked for the Dodgers 2 out of 3 times in the playoffs so far. But you never know. With a 3-batter minimum, you get one reliever in there who just doesn't have it that day, and it's not really like the manager's fault, right? Like you only have a certain number of guys you can go to, but if, say, like Daniel Hudson just doesn't have it, and you're in the 7th inning, give up a couple homers, and the game could be over. Like it's pretty difficult to navigate. I have enjoyed the bullpen games so far. Like it has been pretty much dominance from top to bottom. Even that one game where Landon Knack did give up the big homer to Vientos, I believe, in the second inning.
That's right.
The Dodgers were able to rally back a little bit, and they made it close at the end. But like sometimes you get that reliever who doesn't have it, and it's just not necessarily. It just doesn't end well for the team, especially when you're playing a high-power team like the Yankees. Probably the best team the Dodgers will have run into this playoffs. Definitely better than the Mets. The Padres were really good.
They were. I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if they switch up how they format the playoffs in the future, because I would love to see the Padres and Dodgers going 7. Obviously, I'd probably have a heart attack sometime during the series, but it would be fun to see them go 7 and to see who has more endurance throughout the series, because that's important. Maybe some expanded rosters. But what I will say, from the get-go, we knew that the starting pitching wasn't going to be the strong point of the Dodgers roster going into the playoffs in general. So we've had to heavily rely on the bullpen arms, essentially. And I don't know if it's Dave Roberts. I don't know if it's the team meetings that they've had throughout the postseason, chemistry, whatnot. But most of the bullpen arms have stepped up, including, if I don't know if you saw, but Brent Honeywell and Max Muncy did an interview with David Vassegh over on Sportsnet LA, I believe. And they just have a certain bond and chemistry about them that you just don't see with other teams. They said it's the closest they've been since 2020, which was the COVID year.
Yeah.
The Dodgers obviously won during that year, but everyone was stuck in a hotel room together. How could you not bond at that point? So I'm hopeful. We'll see. It's hard to say. Hopefully, the bullpen has been looking pretty good so far. I think the last game of the Mets series, Game 6, the bullpen let up a few runs, but it wasn't extraordinary. And we knew that the offense had to pick it up anyway, and that's essentially what happened.
Yeah, for sure. Speaking of the bullpen, like that's probably been the strong suit for this team in the playoffs. Like without the guys in the bullpen, you have 4 or 5 guys that you could go to in a closing role, and that's pretty wild to me. When you look at the starting rotation the Dodgers have on the IL, you have Tyler Glasnow, Clayton Kershaw, Shohei Ohtani's not pitching. Gavin Stone has been a revelation this season, and like Dustin May's on the IL. Like you can build you would probably build the best rotation in baseball off of just the pitchers that are on the IL for the Dodgers, which is wild that they're performing this well when they have all that talent on the shelf. But looking at the bullpen, the roster is still undecided. Dave Roberts hasn't confirmed whether or not Brusdar Graterol and Alex Vesia will be on the roster. He said that Vesia is more likely than Graterol, but both are potential options for the Dodgers bullpen in the World Series. But for the NLCS bullpen, it was Michael Kopech, Evan Phillips, Daniel Hudson, Blake Trinan, the 4 high-leverage righties. Anthony Bonda, the main lefty, the only lefty in the bullpen. Ryan Brazier used as the opener in those bullpen games. Brent Honeywell, Edgardo Enriquez, and Ben Kasparius. If I had to guess, if Vesia and or Graterol come back, it would be Enriquez off first, and then Honeywell or Kasparius off second.
Yeah.
So I don't know if those guys are going to be back, but if you get both Vesia and Graterol back, that's a really dangerous bullpen that probably doesn't even have like what your worst reliever at that point would be like Ben Kasparius and then Ryan Brazier, which are both like Kasparius, obviously not very much major league experience, but he had a couple great outings against the Mets. And if that's your 8th guy, then man, that bullpen is really good. So what are your thoughts on the guys that potentially are returning for the World Series roster? And even if they don't, like how good is this bullpen?
It's a tremendous bullpen. I am almost certain that Brusdar Graterol is not going to be in the bullpen. Same thing with Joe Kelly. He's been injured, but he's also been on the right track. But they're just not going to activate him. Same thing with Brusdar Graterol. They just don't want to risk it. So I think Enriquez will probably be off the roster and be replaced with Vesia. And if there's an injury that happens throughout the series, they'll just replace him. But it's an extremely dangerous bullpen. I mean, Kopech and Trinan are straight up lockdown closers. They are the setup man and the closer, essentially. Evan
really
Phillips,
opener, right? Like Kopech starting that game was.
I think that was
like Chris Taylor made me very upset, but
I don't know. Looking back on that play, actually, I do think Muncy probably had a chance to catch that ball, but he didn't. It goes either way. It's kind of a coin flip as to who you give the error to, but I thought it was a very ballsy move from Dave Roberts to put out Kopech first. But it makes sense when you kind of want to set the tone against the Mets. You're back at home. You want to start off strong. And honestly, I think he did his job there. He gave up a run, arguably unearned. But he really set the tone. He got, I mean, Tommy Edman came through and hit a 2-run double right after that. So he got the team fired up and it led to a win. So I'm not worried about that. Trinan has been looking unhittable. I don't think he's let up a run this postseason so far. And if you see his stuff, it looks like Frisbee's out of the hand. It's insane. Like it doesn't look like he's throwing the same ball. He looks like he's throwing a wiffle ball. But yeah, it's absolutely insane. So I'm super excited. I think people are really underestimating the Dodgers bullpen because I've seen online with articles, whether it be ESPN, Fangraphs, whatnot, that they consider both of these bullpens pretty evenly matched, with the Dodgers with a slight edge. I'm pretty sure it's a blowout by the Dodgers bullpen. I don't think it's even close. The only reason the Yankees bullpen might have even a consideration of an edge is because they were seen a little bit less. So the Dodgers have less to work with. But even then, I think it'll be hard to hit Trinan's pitches if you've seen it 100 times. If anything, it makes it harder to hit.
Yeah, I agree. And like these teams haven't faced each other a lot, right? It's AL, NL. It's not like the Padres and Dodgers who linked up multiple times throughout the season. Dodgers and Mets played 6 games. Yankees and Dodgers only played each other 3 times, and Juan Soto did not appear in any of those games. So it's going to look a little bit different than those 3 games. Obviously, the Dodgers did take 2 out of 3, which is great considering the Yankees didn't have who was arguably their best hitter this postseason. And yeah, I'm a little bit nervous, but we're going to get into the lineups real quick here. The Dodgers lineup has been fantastic throughout this playoffs. They've scored a lot of runs. They draw a lot of walks, top to bottom. They just have such a deep lineup, right? Your 8th place hitter against right-handed pitchers, Tommy Edman, just won the NLCS MVP. And yeah, as a Cardinals fan, people will laugh at me and be like, hey, you guys keep giving us up the CS MVPs. But honestly, I'm happy for Tommy Edman. It's great to see that. As a Cardinals fan, I don't necessarily regret the trade. And I'm really excited to see him. Like Tommy Edman is one of the most clutch hitters I've ever watched play. He will always get the job done against those high leverage relievers. Look at his numbers against Josh Hader. Last year, the Cardinals played the Padres. This is one of my favorite Tommy Edman moments. He had back-to-back walk-offs in back-to-back games. One was a homer. The other was, I think, a double off the wall. So he's just great to watch. He's going to step up in the playoffs. You just know that's going to happen. And I'm glad to see that it's going on. But other than Tommy Edman, you got a really star-powered lineup. In the infield, you got Will Smith behind the plate, Austin Barnes backing him up. First base, you have Freddie Freeman. He's coming off that ankle injury. Sounds like he's going to be ready to go tomorrow for Game 1 of the World Series. But even when he has played, hasn't been the best, hasn't been the most effective in terms of like he's gotten a couple of timely hits, but he hasn't shown off the power. He hasn't really done all that much. But hopefully the extra rest in between the CS and the World Series will get him back on track. Gavin Lux at second base, along with Chris Taylor, kind of depending on a platoon matchup there. Max Muncy at third base. Tommy Edman at shortstop. Left field will be Teoscar Hernandez. Center field, probably split between Kike Hernandez and Kevin Kiermaier. Right field, Mookie Betts. And DHing is this guy, Shohei Ohtani. I don't know if he did anything special this year, but it's a pretty good lineup from top to bottom. I believe Ohtani will lead off, Betts batting second behind him. Freeman, Teoscar Hernandez, Max Muncy, Kike Hernandez, Will Smith, Tommy Edman, and I probably forgot someone like Gavin Lux. Yeah, there you go. Great lineup. What are your thoughts on the offensive production this playoff?
Yeah, I will say I'm going to start off with Freddie Freeman because to a lot of people, he is the X factor between when comparing the Yankees and Dodgers lineup. So he said it throughout the postseason with this ankle injury that when he takes batting practice, he feels fine, and he's hitting the ball really well. But as soon as he starts taking reps at first base, it starts to really flare up, and that's when it goes downhill. So I believe that this rest, what is it, like 5 days rest, will really heal up his ankle, and he'll be ready to go. I mean, you would have to fight tooth and nail to get him out of the lineup. So 100% we can see him at first base. It's just a matter of whether he'll be able to produce on the field with the glove and at the plate with the bat. So I don't really have any worries. I think he'll be fine. We'll see. I'm assuming they're going to give him a rest day at least once throughout the series, and adjust if he's not feeling as well. But we've seen the Dodgers are 3-0 when he doesn't play, so I'm not worried about offensive production whatsoever. Other than that, Smith he's objectively been pretty bad throughout the CS and DS for that matter. But he started to take an uphill turn during that last game against the Mets. He had a massive 2-run shot that gave us necessary insurance runs. Same thing with Teoscar Hernandez. Great DS, subpar CS. I think he went 0 for a majority of the series. And then he almost had a 2-run home run again off the wall. Didn't run it out, but thankfully Tommy Edman came in clutch. And then he had another single after that. So it looks like he's picked up his things, and he has great numbers against the Yankees in general. So I'm not worried. Other than that, I really believe that the X factor, personally for me, not including like the top 3, Shohei, Betts, Freeman, will probably be Kike Hernandez.
Oh, yeah.
Because he was on the Red Sox for a good period of time and had extensive opportunities to hit off of Cole. And he has pretty good numbers off of him. I'm not sure what the exact numbers are. It looks like he had 368 with a 478 OBP and with a 684 slug. Essentially a 1 OPS, which is great. And that's what you want to see from your projected, 8 hole?
Like 6-7 hole hitter. Yeah, it's been Kike has been fun to watch. He seems to turn it on in the playoffs, and that's not something I can say about a lot of Dodgers in recent postseason history, but they seem to be clicking. Shohei Ohtani, obviously, what's he going to do in this series? He hasn't stolen a base yet in the postseason, which is crazy. Francisco Alvarez threw him out, I think, in game 1 of the NLCS.
He did, yeah.
And that was his only attempt the entire playoffs. And he's had opportunities, not too many, because he went over with runners without runners on base. And obviously, when you're going to do that, it's not great. But with runners in scoring position, he's completely unstoppable. It's kind of crazy, the run that he's been going on. I really hope he can continue to do it, take advantage of that short porch at Yankee Stadium, maybe hit a couple of fly balls, because it seems like even when he hits weak fly balls,
they go far.
They go very far. They go to the warning track, and it's like he didn't get all of that one. So, like, if you can maybe pull a couple of those towards right field and get a couple extra homers for free out of swings that you normally would be flyouts, that would be massive. But yeah, overall, the Dodgers lineup extremely clutch with runners in scoring position, really good plate discipline, not walking a lot, kind of very similar to the Yankees roster, which we're going to take a look at right now. To preview the Yankees rotation, I think this is the Yankees' strength. Their starting pitching is significantly deeper. I don't know about quality-wise. Garrett Cole is obviously one of the best pitchers in all of baseball, but the rest of their arms aren't necessarily names that would blow you away. I think the Yankees rotation needs to step up in the playoffs if they want to take down the Dodgers, because their bullpen isn't quite as good. But looking at their names, obviously Garrett Cole will pitch game 1. Carlos Rodon is lined up for game 2. He's been very hit or miss this playoffs. Clark Schmidt will be their number 3 game 3 starter. And right now it's not confirmed yet, but Luis Gil did start game 4 for the Yankees in the ALCS. Probably will start game 4 of the World Series because he had a pretty good outing against Cleveland. And then Marcus Stroman's also on that roster. I don't think he'll get many starting opportunities. And Nestor Cortez had a really funny quote about, hey, if he can win a World Series, then he'll get Tommy John surgery next year and not play. But he is also most likely going to be on the World Series roster. Not sure if he's going to get any starts, but definitely a lefty option to neutralize guys like Shohei Ohtani and Freddie Freeman when given the chance. So what are your thoughts on the Yankees pitching rotation, starting rotation, and how do you think the Dodgers will fare against some of those guys?
Better, no doubt. They're better than the Dodgers starting pitchers, straight up. I don't think there's any argument for that. But the reason why I'm not as scared, the only one that kind of makes me nervous is Garrett Cole, because he's had good numbers against the Dodgers historically, is because Dodgers just work the pitchers and tire them out so quickly that it essentially limits them to 4 innings, maybe 5. The only pitcher that we weren't really able to do that against was Yu Darvish. And he's just a dog out there. So I can't say anything, but I really don't think that starting pitching is going to make a massive difference. And it will essentially come down to whoever has the greater depth of pitching within each lineup. So it's whoever can pick up the slack. If, let's say, Rodon goes 4 innings of shutout ball, but he's at like 95 pitches by that point. I'm not saying that's going to happen, but if that happens, who can they rely on? Is it going to be the Marcus Stroman? Is it going to be the Nestor Cortez? Is it going to be, are they going to go straight to like maybe pull a Mets and put in Luke Weaver in that spot? And it's how and we've seen that the Dodgers can take advantage of those decisions and really attack. So with the Dodgers, that's why I'm putting an advantage to the Dodgers, is because they've shown that they can do that. And really tax bullpens. So that's what I'm expecting, but we'll see.
Yeah, for sure. The Dodgers seem to be relentless. Guys like Jose Quintana, who live outside the zone, just stand no chance against the Dodgers, who have just such good plate discipline. Guys like Schmidt and Heel, who are a little bit younger, might struggle with that. And it could definitely be something to take advantage of. They're not necessarily as experienced as veterans like Cole and Rodon. Rodon scares me a little bit more than I think he scares you. But overall, like, you got guys like Tommy Edman who hit like Barry Bonds against left-handed pitching. Like, even if you don't get it out of Shohei, who couldn't do anything against the Padres relievers like Tanner Scott.
Yeah.
Like, if you use those lefties to try to neutralize Shohei, that's fine. Tommy Edman's going to bat cleanup, and he'll take you deep too. Like, it's wild to me how deep this lineup is. Dodgers historically, like, I was looking at the rosters and stuff from years past and from earlier this season. It just didn't look like they had the guys to hit against left-handed pitching. But bringing in Tommy Edman was a very savvy move by them to do that, because he's like actually one of the most underrated players in the entire league. And against left-handed pitching, he's just like a completely different player. And I'm really excited to see what some of those guys can do. Teoscar Hernandez, another addition this offseason that's been great against left-handed pitching. And the Yankees do have more lefties than the Mets did. I believe the Mets just had David Peterson and Jose Quintana, the 2 starters, and they had a low-leverage reliever. Was it Danny Young? I don't remember his name.
Yep.
He wasn't like not as established of a name as like Nestor Cortez or Carlos Rodon or Tanner Scott or guys like that you can definitely use as a weapon. Because when you face the Dodgers, you need a weapon to be able to neutralize Shohei Ohtani, because I mean, when he goes off, you see what he did in the regular season towards the end. Like he can win a series all by himself, and that should definitely scare the Yankees. But moving into their bullpen, again, a little bit uncertain as to who will be in the World Series roster. Teams shake up their bullpens all the time. The Yankees, with Cortez coming back from injury, could be a little bit different. But for the ALCS, they had Luke Weaver, Tommy Kahnle, Jake Cousins. Ian Hamilton won't be on the World Series roster. He got hurt, and I believe Mark Leiter Jr. replaced him later on. Clay Holmes, Tim Hill, Tim Meza, Marcus Stroman. That, to me, pretty top-heavy. There's a couple of guys that are really good. Tommy Kahnle threw nothing but changeups against Cleveland, and somehow that was really effective and got the job done. I don't know how you can only throw one pitch and be good at this level, but I guess his changeup is just that good. And Luke Weaver, another former Cardinals player, which is like crazy to me because he was one of the worst starting pitchers in baseball for like 3 years, and then goes to the Yankees, becomes an elite level closer when Clay Holmes starts to struggle. And I mean, I don't know how he did it. He's a completely different player than he was with Arizona, with Kansas City, with all the other teams that he bounced around for. Those are the 2 guys that I think you should really look out for. Clay Holmes, again, was a high leverage reliever. I believe he was even an all-star this year, but he's been a bit of a question mark throughout the second half and throughout the postseason. Tim Hill is a funky lefty who I would not want to face in MLB The Show, but he throws like 87 miles an hour, and I don't know if that's what, like, Shohei Ohtani got struck out by a Czech electrician and a position player. So maybe that's what's gonna get him. You know, maybe that's their Tanner Scott. Obviously, Tanner Scott's stuff is a lot more scary, a lot more uncomfortable, but maybe Tim Hill will be able to neutralize him. Something to look out for. The rest of this bullpen doesn't inspire me all that much, but obviously we've seen time and time again different postseasons, different World Series runs in all of history. There's random guys that step up, and there's guys that fall apart at the worst times, right? Like Emmanuel Clase gave up 5 runs in all of the regular season, and he gave up like 6 runs in the playoffs, and he pitched like a tenth of the amount of innings, and it's like, wow, how did that happen? So you never know with these bullpens, but what are your thoughts on the Yankees bullpen? Do you think that's going to be like the place where the Dodgers beat the Yankees, is just by having more depth in their bullpen, having more guys to go to?
I think so. I think the Dodgers are going to be able to exploit the Yankees bullpen a little bit more. With Clay Holmes, I mean, in an ideal world for the Yankees, they have Clay Holmes as a setup guy with who was it? Luke Weaver as the closer, right? Everyone else can be a matchup kind of arm out of the pen, or give them a little bit of length if they need to. And we've just seen that it just doesn't work. Bullpen guys are just not that good when they have to go more than 1 or 2, and especially with the Yankees. We've had the Dodgers have actually had Tommy Kahnle for, I believe, a year, and so we have extensive knowledge on him. Luke Weaver, we got to see multiple times. Clay Holmes, I mean, you can call him dynamite, not because he's good, but because of the amount of implosions that he's had throughout the postseason and regular season. Jake Cousins, good matchup arm. Same thing with Leiter Jr. Tim Hill, I would kind of have to put him in the same category as Sean Manaea with the weird arm release. Sean Manaea obviously throws a little bit harder. I think he even touched 94 at one point. Tim Hill,
I think he got Shohei on a 95. He just blew it past him because he wasn't expecting it. That was scary. Like, Sean Manaea didn't have it in Game 6, but I was like, this series is going 7 because of just how good he looked. But
exactly.
Yeah.
But yeah, with the funky like lefties, even in the NLDS, the Padres had a funky arm in Adrian Morejon, and Shohei just got it done. So I'm not worried about the matchups with like Tim Hill, especially since I wouldn't call him soft tossing, but he doesn't throw as hard as other lefty relievers that we've seen, even Danny Young from the Mets. So I'm not too worried about like the matchups. And the Dodgers are really good at chase rate, and funny enough, they're only behind the Yankees, I believe, in chase rate.
Yeah, the Yankees, they do have a higher walk rate than the Dodgers this playoffs. I don't know if that's just that they faced a little bit of weaker pitching or whatever. Like, I'm not trying to like diss on the Royals or the Guardians or anything, but like some of those arms not necessarily as good as some of the guys that the Dodgers faced up in San Diego. But yeah, overall the Yankees bullpen, probably their weakest point on the roster, but their lineup might be better than the Dodgers lineup. It's pretty up for debate. I think the Dodgers lineup is a little bit better just because of that depth, but their star power is really scary. We'll get into that right now. For their position player core, again, not finalized rosters. I think we'll find out truly probably tomorrow morning. But they have Austin Wells behind the plate. Struggled a lot this playoffs, but again, like, players that have struggled can step it up after a series. Jose Trevino backing him up. Anthony Rizzo at first base. Another injured first baseman. I think he has 2 fractured fingers right now, but he's going to continue to play out there. Gleyber Torres at second base, he's been great so far in the postseason for the Yankees. Up and down career, but he's been a monster in the postseason from the leadoff spot. Anthony Volpe at shortstop struggled offensively for the most part last 2 seasons, but again in the playoffs seem to find a new gear, and that's always scary. You never know who's gonna in the World Series just be the hero, right? Like Cardinals 2011 roster full of guys like Albert Pujols, Yadier Molina, Lance Berkman, Matt Holliday, and it was David Freese, the guy nobody really knew aside from Cardinals fans. Like you never know who might step up, and it was Tommy Edman for the Dodgers in the NLCS. There's just guys that come out of nowhere. Volpe probably not; he was a top prospect, but offensively hasn't been great, but a defensive wizard out there. Jazz Chisholm at third base, Verdugo in left, Aaron Judge in center, Juan Soto in right, and Giancarlo Stanton as their DH. They've got John Birdie, Oswaldo Cabrera, Jason Dominguez, maybe Trent Grisham, and that is their projected roster offensively. I don't think there's going to be as many changes from the ALCS.
Me neither.
But that lineup is pretty scary from the top down. You start with Gleyber Torres leading off, set the table. Then you got Soto, Judge, and Stanton back to back to back. And like Stanton might write him off during the regular season. He's pretty injury prone. His time as a Yankee hasn't been the most, like it hasn't been the best performance wise, availability wise, but it seems like playoff Stanton is a real thing. And he turns into old MVP Marlins Mike Stanton when he's in the playoffs, and that is really dangerous. Juan Soto, it seems like every swing he takes, he adds another digit to his contract for next year. That's going to be wild to see how he performs. Took a fantastic at-bat to clinch a World Series for the Yankees in the 10th inning of Game 5, was it? I think they won in 5, and it was wild watching that at-bat play out in real time. Aaron Judge also been questions about his postseason performance, but, he's Aaron Judge. He can step up any point. 62 home runs the other year. I don't think he hit 60 this year, but I think it was 59, so it was pretty close. So he's probably the most dangerous hitter in all of baseball. I don't care what his postseason numbers look like. He's still scary. What are your thoughts on this Yankees lineup?
I have the exact same feeling as you. I do think the Dodgers have a little bit more depth. But yeah, top down, I think they have just as much potential as the Dodgers lineup to be an offensive juggernaut. Aside from the top 3, of course, you have Torres, Soto, Judge, and Stanton. I mean, that's an insane top 4 to have. And it can be evenly matched with, Shohei, Betts, Freeman, Teoscar, essentially the same. So if you knock out those 4, let's say, and you put the rest of the players in a pool, I would probably take most of the Dodgers players first, because I would want Kike on my team. I would want Edman on my team first. And all of like the role players. Gavin Lux has shown that he can be really good in certain spots. And Will Smith is starting to turn it back on. So I'd take him over Wells. But yeah, that does not take away from how good the Yankees lineup will be, essentially. Jazz Chisholm has stepped it up since becoming a Yankee, just hasn't shown it in the playoffs yet. Rizzo, like you mentioned, a couple broken fingers, but he stars in the playoffs too. He's really good. Volpe's a defensive wizard. But what I do think it will come down to are essentially the intangibles. We've seen that the Yankees aren't very good at base running for whatever reason. I don't know if it's the coaching or they just have mental lapses, as well as defense. I really believe that the Dodgers have a better defense than the Yankees do, and that'll really show itself. And it showed itself earlier in the regular season. Gleyber looked he looked clueless at second base. But it could change. Postseason teams are not the same as regular season teams, and people tend to step it up. So we'll see how that plays out. But over the course of a 7-game series, I really think we'll have to take advantage of those miscues on the field. But yeah. Other than that, offensive wise, pretty evenly matched. It's a toss up between whether you would take one lineup or the other.
Yeah, I'm the biggest Shohei apologist in the world. I will never bet against him. But if you ask me the top 3 Dodgers, top 3 Yankees, I lean top 3 Yankees just because we don't know what Freeman's going to be in the playoffs. He hasn't been great so far. That injury is really, supposedly it's like a really bad injury, and it would probably be like a 6-week IL stint if it was normal, like regular season time. And Mookie Betts is great, but he's not Juan Soto. And I would take in a World Series, I will never bet against Shohei Ohtani. In anything, I will never bet against him. He continues I wasn't even watching the game at the beginning when he was hitting the 50-50 because I didn't think he was going to get it on that day because he's 2 homers away and 2 steals away. He's not going to do that all in one game. I was like, I'll do it when he's 1 homer away. And then he did all of that in the same game. It's like, okay, that's cool. And I got to watch the 50th homer live, but I did not expect that was all going to happen in the same game. He, you never know, right? He entered the 40-40 club on a walk-off grand slam. He entered the 50-50 club and made the playoffs in a game that will probably never be touched again in baseball history.
He almost
put him in the World Series. What is he going to do, right? But when you look at the supporting cast around him, Betts and Freeman, it's kind of tough to call them supporting cast. They're also superstar players. But you look at Stanton and Soto, it's hard for me to vote against Stanton and Soto just because of what they've done in the postseason so far. And just because Freeman, again, is a little bit hobbled. You don't know what you're going to get out of him. But the rest of that Dodgers lineup with Teoscar Hernandez and Will Smith and Tommy Edman and Kike Hernandez and just Max Muncy, I'm forgetting guys. There's guys that I think can give you that jolt from anywhere in the order, right? You can conceivably navigate around the Yankees' big bats, right? I can walk. Suppose I have Judge, Stanton, and then Chisholm coming up. If I retire Judge, I can pitch around Stanton because I'm not really that afraid of Chisholm and Volpe and Wells. If you pitch around Shohei, you have Betts waiting, you have Freeman on deck. But even if you don't have those guys, you have Teoscar Hernandez, who I'm much more scared of than an Austin Wells. I'm much more scared of Tommy Edman. He's not a big guy, but he had if it's Carlos Rodon's day, I'm not messing with him. That's not going to happen. And also, if you pitch around Shohei Ohtani, he can just go to second base. He can just steal. And we haven't seen that in the playoffs yet, but are the Yankees that good at stopping the running game? Shohei Ohtani stole 59 bases this year. You pitch around Aaron Judge, he's 10? Stanton can't run. You pitch around Stanton, where is he going? He's not going anywhere. So there's ways. I guess you pitch around Freddie Freeman, he's not going anywhere either. But I think in terms of pure power, I think the Yankees have the Dodgers beat. They're going to hit more homers. It's just how they're run. But in terms of overall offensive play, there's more ways for the Dodgers to beat the Yankees than for the Yankees to beat the Dodgers offensively, just because they have more tools, right? Tommy Edman, not your typical cleanup hitter. He'll give you the home runs against the lefties, but he can also swipe bags. He can run, smart base runner. And I don't know if I see that in the Yankees, but also I'm not gonna bet against that big 3 either.
And the thing is, we've seen different from past years that the Dodgers this year are willing to play the small game. We see Tommy Edman bunt a few times. They get guys over, they hit sac flies. It's great. I don't think I've ever
ABC
seen.
baseball, as our Cardinals announcer Chip Carey would say.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, the amount of grit that the Dodgers lineup has, and the the passion to score runs any way they can is, um, I think, better than what the Yankees can do, because they are very, as you said, like top heavy, and they mash. But I don't think I will ever see Juan Soto lay down a bunt, or Judge, or Stanton. Um,
You're not going to see Shohei Ohtani lay down a bunt either, even though he'll maybe get on base because he's
he
that
might.
bad.
He might. I think I've seen him throughout the regular season.
I think he
Lay
did it
down.
against the Angels, or with the Angels
Yeah,
when he was there. He did it a couple times,
he
but
has
not.
he has the potential to do it. Let's say. Whereas the Yankees, I don't think I've ever seen Gleyber Torres, even for that matter, lay down a bunt. I mean, Austin Wells doesn't bunt.
Yeah.
I might be able to see Jazz Chisholm even like.
I think he bunts. He
Sure.
can lay
Maybe.
down. He can lay
He
one
can,
down.
100%.
The point is that the Yankees aren't really going to play the small ball game on you. They're going to either slug or they're not. And
Exactly.
yeah.
So we'll see. I'm interested to see how the Dodgers will be pitching against the Yankees lineup. Will they just be like living outside, or will they come in, or what are they expecting from it, or will they play pitch to contact? But we'll see. It's a lot of people have been saying this, but I think it holds true. It's like when an immovable object meets an unstoppable force. I really think that's what this is. So I'm excited to see the matchup. I'll probably be, my heart rate will probably be north of 130 the entire series, but it'll be a fun ride.
It's gonna be a really fun series. But before we leave you guys with our World Series previews, make sure you subscribe, hit the like. We're new, obviously, to this Dodgers space. I've been doing baseball media for quite a while now. Some in St. Louis would consider me part of the mainstream media. I appreciate it. I'm not, but we're going to get into our final predictions for this World Series right now. So, Brandon, who's winning the series and in how many games?
So, obviously, I'm a Dodgers fan. I'm going to say Dodgers. I think the Dodgers do it in 6. I really do. I mean, as the baseball in me says, I would like to see the Dodgers win in 7, but for my own sanity's sake, I'm going to say Dodgers in 6.
Yeah, I mean, man, it's been a while since we've gotten a really good World Series. Now, the baseball fan in me says the last good World Series was 2016, right? Cubs, Cleveland, won 7 games. The Cubs overcame a 3-1 deficit, but I hate the Cubs because I'm a Cardinals fan. Okay, so that was a painful watch for me. Not going to talk about it anymore. Mm-hmm. But actually, the 2019 one with the Nationals was also pretty good. But it's been a while since we've gotten like a top tier World Series. And I think everything is on the table for this series to be one of the better ones. This is probably the first World Series in a long time where there's been no true favorite to win the series, right?
Oh, yeah.
Like last year, it's pretty clear that the Rangers were favored over the Diamondbacks. It's a really weird series between the two teams. Year before that, pretty clear the Astros were favored over the Phillies. The Braves-Astros one was kind of weird. I think the Astros were favored, but the Braves just kind of stomped them. But like it's been a while. And the last time like I was truly invested in a World Series, the Cardinals in 2011 and 2013, but we don't talk about that. But in 2011, like the Rangers were clear favorites over the Cardinals, but that was like an all-time classic World Series. It's been a really long time since we've had 2 like heavyweights go at it in a series where it doesn't like you can talk me aside from the like rotation. It's clear that the Yankees rotation is better than the Dodgers rotation, and it's clear that the Dodgers bullpen is better than the Yankees bullpen. And like the 2 pitching staffs overall kind of a wash. Like you don't really know which one is better. And for me, the 2 lineups, it's kind of a wash too. Like you can have your preferences. I prefer the versatility, the small ball over the big home runs. It's not like the Dodgers don't hit big home runs too, but that's what the Yankees will hit more, like big home runs throughout the course of a season. And I think they did. But it's really, really hard to determine which of these two teams is better. And there's no clear favorite. It's the first time we've had these two teams in the World Series for like in decades. I wasn't born. You weren't born. A lot of people listening to this probably weren't born either. And it's really hard to decide. And I think it has to go 7. I think this is like believe in the baseball gods, believe in script writers, believe in whatever's going on.
Don't do it.
I think this is going to be one of the better World Series of all time. It just like this is the first time in World Series history where we've had 2 50 home run hitters going at it. It's the first time since 2012 where we've had both MVPs in the World Series, and that was Miguel Cabrera and Buster Posey.
Yep.
But like Miguel Cabrera, obviously first ballot Hall of Famer, but like Buster Posey, is he a Hall of Famer? Like, I don't know. He doesn't seem to have they don't seem to have the name value. Like the two combined don't seem to have the name value of Judge and Ohtani. All of Japan's going to be tuned in on this. It's going to be absolutely electric to see what happens. I'm going to go again. I will never bet against Shohei Ohtani. I'm going to go Dodgers in 7. Ohtani wins World Series MVP. And I know that's not like a popular pick, or it's going to be the most popular pick. It's not like a whatever. Like if you told me, leave Ohtani out of this, if it was like, if he wasn't on the team, it was some other player that was also like extremely good, I would probably say like, yeah, Gavin Lux is going to be the World Series MVP, because it's never who you expect it was. Like Jeremy Pena was the World Series MVP. Like the 2 Cardinals World Series MVPs, David Freese and David Eckstein. Like you're never going to like really hear about those guys aside from World Series context. Like the big stars are usually never that. Jorge Soler was the World Series MVP in 2021 for the Braves, and he had a negative WAR that year. So you're not going to get it, but I won't bet against him. I'll say Ohtani World Series MVP. How about you?
I'm actually going to say Kike Hernandez, World Series MVP. He's had good numbers against Cole, and in general just seems to turn it to another level when the postseason happens and the lights are shining on him. So it's hard to bet against him. It's not like I don't think Ohtani and Freeman, Betts aren't going to have like great offensive games, but I think who has the better WPA win probability added over the course of the series will be chosen as the MVP, and I think that's going to be Kike Hernandez.
Yeah, that's a really good point, because Tommy Edman in the NLCS had the 3rd highest OPS on the team. Muncy and Shohei Ohtani both had a higher OPS, but Edman did come up in those clutch situations. His championship win probability, overall win probability added, was significantly higher than both those guys, and that's how you should pick those MVPs.
Yep.
Obviously, throughout the course of a major league season, you're not going to pick the guys that like come up in like the big moments and whatever, but like for a 7-game set, that makes a lot of sense. Kike is a good pick. Probably come up clutch in those moments. But yeah, I think that just about does it for the very first episode of the Two-Way podcast. Cardinals people tell me I talk too much about the Dodgers. Dodgers people are probably going to say that I talk too much about the Cardinals. I can't win, but I'm kind of being dragged 2 ways by what I like to watch in baseball. But I'm excited, man. It's been a long ride. I followed Shohei Ohtani ever since he came to the league with the Angels, and like, yeah, it was painful, but like when he became a true superstar, I was the one thing I wanted to see him do was play in the playoffs, and it's been such a treat to watch these 2 series. And honestly, I know you will be disappointed, but no matter what, we've won. We got the ultimate World Series matchup. We got the 2 best players in the game facing off. We're just going to enjoy the ride. Leave a like, subscribe to this podcast if you want to see more of this. We might be doing one of these after each game. I don't know if I have that much time. Maybe one after each game. Definitely will try to get one in before the series is over, unless the Dodgers win in 4, which would be kind of sad for baseball, but probably good for you. Probably good for your heart. Yeah. So we appreciate you guys for tuning in to this episode. If anyone is tuning in to this episode, hopefully we get ourselves a good series and the Dodgers come out on top. Thanks, guys.